Go ahead and have you step into the jury room.
All right for jury. Proceed.
All right, I'm going to ask that you just go ahead and take a step out in the hallway, and we'll call you back in for your testimony. She's good. All right, what I understand then, Mr. Sheffield, is that you're going to ask her about a list that she pulled as part of her duties with the GBI.
Right, we were given this information from the state. It's maybe we have it under state's witnesses as part of the work that this particular agent did. She was asked, and I think she just testified, she was asked to pull some reports. She populated a list of those reports, which start at 7/1/19 and end on 2/23/20. And also, she pulled the documents associated with those reports. So those were part of her case file, and I think she labeled it maybe as Exhibit 96, or it was labeled as Exhibit 96 in the GBI's file. I have a number of those reports that I contend are relevant that deal with neighborhood patrol, extra patrol, and suspicious persons. I've gone through them, and by category, Your Honor, and I have the certifications of them as business records from the clerk, but I have them as neighborhood patrol, starting on 7/5/19, going through to 2/19/20, and there are approximately 6, 7, 8, 20 of these. Then, Your Honor, I have trespassing, and some of these trespassings we've seen already. One from 10/25 on 220 Satilla. That's actually all that is. It's just related to 220 Satilla, but she pulled it. And then, Your Honor, I have extra watch, which starts, the earliest is, well, not the earliest, but the one that I have that's in compliance with what she did was November 18th. It looks like there's 3 documents that deal with the extra watch all around the same residence of 220. I don't have to tender all 3, but they have different times on them, I guess. So that makes them relevant because there's extra watch happening at different times. Then I have suspicious persons starting on 7/13 going through, the last one is dated 2/13, and there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 9 of these within her relevant time period. And then there are, I think, the documents that we may have spoken about already, a burglary on 7/1/19 and entering auto on 12/8. Another theft entering auto on 1/20, that's for Travis McMichael. I would move these into evidence, Your Honor, and strictly be using essentially the dates and the nature of the call. These are not documents that would go out with the jury, but they are reflective of what she did and gathered. And now on cross, I would seek to admit them as the complete part of her testimony with these certifications. I wanted to bring that to the court's attention before I just did it, since I know the court is working through this.
From the state?
I'm going to ask that the lawyer who's dealing with the witness present for the state, please.
Well, she argued the motion earlier today, and this is exactly the same issue.
Well, we're on a different issue now. We're on cross-examination with certified records.
I'll permit the state to argue it's, go ahead.
Thank you, Judge. Once again, ambushed with this stuff being handed to me at 8:30 this morning to have this witness testify to it. First off, saying she pulled them, what she did was she requested that the Glenn County Police Department provide her with these records. They were then provided to her. She then provided them to Special Agent Dial. Special Agent Dial reviewed all of these records, some of them twice. He then testified about these records at the preliminary hearing initially. So at this time, questioning this witness, I'm afraid, is going to end up in a lot of, yeah, I pulled all of these, and then we're going to go through each and every one of them with dates and the nature of the call. Well, Judge, if we're going to do that, then the state is going to want to have Special Agent Dial actually delve into this. It appears we're talking about the trespassings at 220 Satilla Drive. All of that's already in, including the 911 calls, including officers who responded have already testified. The extra watch on 11/18 is also related to 220 Satilla Drive. So after 11/18, we have some people doing extra watches in the neighborhood. Totally logical. The suspicious person reports I'm concerned about. I did review the stack that Mr. Sheffield said for me to look at. And once again, we've got some concerns because this is personal stuff. I need to go ahead and once again look at exactly which 9 we're talking about. But I think Agent Dial should be able to delve into when we say suspicious person, we're not talking about Ahmaud Arbery. We're talking about 2 white people. When we talk about suspicious person, we're not talking about Ahmaud Arbery. We're talking about a contractor van in my driveway. When we're talking about suspicious person, we're talking about some unknown car that's there, and oh yeah, that's my brother. He's supposed to be there. So I think it's disingenuous to say, oh, suspicious person calls, and it's just that's the nature, without actually saying, well, the nature was some personal problems that these individuals had on their properties. The burglary on 7-1, once again, that was a false alarm. Nothing happened there. 12/8's the Herndons. We've already had Officer Rash testify about the Herndons and the white people that were doing it and the posting to Facebook. And then 1-1 is Travis McMichael. So I guess the state's request is if this is allowed and we're going to go through this, then the state wishes to go ahead and really go through it and dive deep into exactly what sort of suspicious stuff was going on. Because it's disingenuous to say suspicious people and then what they're going to argue is the neighborhood was under attack, and that suspicious person, of course, had to be Ahmaud Arbery. There's no other suspicious person in the neighborhood unless they understand that this suspicious person was my brother. This suspicious person was a contractor. This suspicious person was some kids in the neighborhood. There was actually a call for a suspicious person on 4 kids hanging out in a driveway. So that's the kind of thing that if we're going to do this, the state has no problem, but let's do it right, and put in exactly what kind of suspicions the people in Satilla Shores had. So we would just, if we're going to do it, the state would like to be able to go into the underlying facts of this with these certified copies to demonstrate to this jury the nature of what they're trying to intimate here. Thank you.
The state has called this agent who did this work. So let's begin with that. This is the work of this agent. We didn't call this agent. Number 2, I have no problem with the state responding to evidence that the defense puts in. We have not sought to bar them from doing so. They can dive as deep as they want. I can be specific on the suspicious persons. We have an automobile break-in the area, made contact with the homeless man under the bridge. This is a subject that we intend to prove was actually something that the neighborhood was talking about. That's relevant, and it's come up many times. Suspicious person on 11/7. Gentleman on bicycle taking pictures of property, taking pictures, caller approach, said, it's this guy who's running around the neighborhood, and it was on Facebook. And they were concerned about who he was because they didn't think it made sense that he was, and they ultimately determined that this person was not wanted in the neighborhood. 1117. There's a suspicious person that's noted as, oh, this is the 1117 call. So we've really already heard about this one, but again, it's the record pulled by this agent. Then there's another suspicious person on 1130. This one is, someone is trying to get into their door. No one should be there. Everyone's at work. They knocked on it. I don't see how we could say this was Ahmaud Arbery. And the state could certainly point out there's no evidence that this was Ahmaud Arbery. And we're not intending to say that this was in fact Ahmaud Arbery. What we're intending is that there was a lot of criminal activity in this neighborhood that caused these neighbors concern that they were talking about. And this is but, one part of piecing together the puzzle. Doesn't always get put together in order, but this is one part of brick by brick, building the picture of what's going on in this neighborhood. 12-13-19, suspicious person. Caller is out of town. Her doorbell went off, floodlights have come on. Caller would like an officer to ride over. Caller's 2 hours away. These are things that are happening in the neighborhood. 12-17, suspicious person. This just notes on 219, the address of 219 Satilla Drive, there was a call that came in. Then it ultimately says home is clear, going to be in the area. So he went and checked it out. Now the home is clear. On 11420, again, under Lanier Bridge, there's another suspicious person call about something happening under the bridge. This is, again, a piece of the picture of what these neighbors are doing, and we'll tie it up in our case in chief, but this is brick by brick part of what we're doing. Another suspicious person on 115. Gold pickup truck, white van, pulled into the yard. Caller is at work. Subject got out of the white van and got into the gold truck. They left. The caller's going to call a contractor to make sure it's nothing. This is not the one, as I understand it, that somebody was working on the house. That was back on Zellwood. This is on a different street. Again, but it's the way that people are reacting to what's happening in their neighborhood. And lastly, there are a group of kids possibly trying to break into cars. That's what this suspicious person. The state can point out that these are kids that are not Ahmaud Arbery. That's fine. We're not offering it as evidence of Ahmaud Arbery. We're offering it for whatever relevant value it has. And we suggest under 401 the relevance, which tends to make the issue at trial understandable by the jury, is that the citizens of this neighborhood were concerned about crime. This is proof that there are things going on and that show their concern. The Facebook page will continue to funnel it, and the witness testimony will funnel it even more. But this is not inadmissible, impermissible evidence, especially since we now have the person who collected it.
Your Honor, under 401, how does this make it more likely that Travis McMichael murdered Ahmaud Arbery, or less likely that he murdered Ahmaud Arbery? How does it make it more likely that he committed false imprisonment, or less likely that he committed false imprisonment? It doesn't really fall under 401. It's a juror scare tactic. Hey, look, everyone was really, really concerned. It's okay. They went and hunted this guy down and killed him. Not sure how concerns in the neighborhood are a building block, but I have a feeling it's going to be an argument about probable cause and totality of the circumstances and lending credibility to Travis's claim that he thought he had probable cause for some sort of arrest because of all the concerned citizens. We leave it to the discretion of the court. However, our baseline is all or nothing. Thank you, Judge.
Okay. Well, I didn't hear from this witness on direct about pulling the reports or what her role might have been. Okay, I didn't. She didn't testify to it. She didn't testify that she reviewed any reports, didn't explain any of that. So I'm not even sure that this is an appropriate witness to go into this with at this point. If she simply pulled the reports and gave them to Dial, then Dial's the one who reviewed the reports, then he'd be possibly somebody to ask about them if it's relevant to whatever his testimony is in this case. But if she just pulled them, I have some question to begin with over whether or not we even get there. But here's where I'm from this morning's arguments that dovetail into today. So the issue, as I understand it, is, I'll narrow it from where the state is. The issue that I understand that the defense is trying to get to is this general neighborhood on edge argument, which has come up a number of times, including during the motion hearings back in May. So that shouldn't be a surprise to anybody that that is a direction that the defense is headed in. So what does that mean? Obviously that is being defined very broadly right now by the defense, but to me, if that is an argument, what that really is what did Greg McMichael or Travis McMichael or Roddy Bryan know of whatever this evidence is? What did they know of that was being discussed on this Facebook page? What it is not is all of the police reports that occurred between January 1st, 2019 and May of February 23rd of 2020. That evidence, just because there were calls out there, doesn't connect up with the defense's argument that the neighborhood was on edge, because I don't know what those individual neighbors may have known or what the defendants may have known. If they didn't know anything about it, it's completely irrelevant. So just listing through all of this stuff, I've got some concerns about that, because I don't believe all police calls that were made between that period are relevant to that line of argument. I also have a concern about what I've seen, which is what was given to me earlier, and we're sort of, I used the word conflate a number of times in this, but I'm going to conflate this morning's arguments with the arguments now. Just because a business record exists doesn't mean that all of the evidence, all of the stuff in the business record is admissible. You have to jump through those hoops too. And there are narratives in there. There are all sorts of things that are hearsay that go beyond simply the business record itself, because I do understand they're being tendered as business records. That has not been solved for the court. And I've got some concerns that once we start getting into all of these records that are simply lists of calls, potential calls to the police, I guess, we start getting into hearsay of what that was. Now, how does that possibly become admissible? Maybe through a witness that has reviewed the records and considered them as part of the investigation, possibly. I'm not even sure if that's possible. So, circling back to where we are with this witness, I understand what the defense plans to do, but I haven't even heard that this witness pulled any records of what she did with them. So I'm not going to say the defense can go ahead and start putting in a whole bunch of police calls, because if all she did was produce a report or produce a list and give it to somebody, then she's not the witness to ask about this. And even if she was, we need to figure out how exactly any additional police reports might become admissible, or how these police calls might become admissible through that particular witness. So, where I'm in right now, I am very leery of the idea that this is the witness to get this in through. Again, I haven't heard her testimony, so I don't know exactly what she did. But I don't think that every police call made during that period is relevant in this case. So that's directory more than a ruling. So with that, Mr. Sheffield, you ready to proceed with the witness? Okay. Let's go ahead and get the witness seated. Yeah, let's get the witness seated first, then we'll get the panel.